Sometimes history chooses a man not to reward him, but to test him. The year is 1066. The throne of England is empty. The kingdom is afraid. And one man steps forward. His name is Harold Godwinson. He was not born a prince. He was not raised for a crown. But the whole nation looked at him because he knew how to fight. His childhood was no fairy tale. He grew up among politics, betrayal, and constant danger. On stormy coasts, in wooden halls, under the shadow of the sword, Harold believed in only one truth. To be a king is not to wear a crown. It is to carry a nation on your shoulders. But the day he became king, fate did not give him peace. Two great enemies were already marching toward him. From the north, the legendary warrior king Harold Hardrada of Norway. From the south, the relentless Duke of Normandy, William the Conqueror. Harold had no choice. He had to fight. First, he marched north. His army was tired, wounded, hungry, but they did not retreat. At Stamford Bridge, he achieved a stunning victory and changed the course of history. Yet victory had a price. His men were exhausted. And that same moment, news arrived from the south. The Normans have landed. William is here. Harold did not rest. He did not wait. He turned his army around and marched again. He knew that this next battle would decide everything. Not only his life, but the end of an era. On October 14th at Hastings, the battle began. It was more than a clash of swords. It was a question: who will rule England? Fact 1. The last Anglo-Saxon king of England. Harold Godwinson is remembered for one powerful reason. He was the last Anglo-Saxon king of England. For more than 600 years before him, England was ruled by kings who shared one culture, one language, and one way of life. These were the Anglo-Saxons, warriors and farmers, poets and lawmakers, whose kingdoms slowly united into one realm called England. Harold stood at the very end of that story. When he took the crown in January 1066, he became the final link in a long chain that began with legendary rulers like Alfred the Great and Aethelstan. He inherited not only a throne, but a civilization, laws, traditions, councils, and a language that was the ancestor of modern English. But the world around him was changing. Across the sea, a new power was rising: the Normans. They spoke French, built stone castles, and followed a different style of kingship: centralized, harsh, and militarized. They believed Harold had no right to the English throne, so Harold's reign became a countdown. He ruled for only 9 months, yet every day carried the weight of centuries. He rode through lands where Anglo-Saxon warriors had stood for generations, knowing that if he fell, an entire age would fall with him. And that is exactly what happened. When Harold died at the Battle of Hastings in October 1066, the Normans took control of England. The Anglo-Saxon nobility was destroyed. Their lands were confiscated, their language pushed aside by Norman French. Castles rose where wooden halls once stood. The face of the country changed forever. After Harold, no Anglo-Saxon ever sat on the English throne again. That is why historians call him more than just a king. He is the symbolic ending of Old England, the last ruler of a people who had shaped the island for centuries. His death did not only end a life, it ended an era. Fact 2. Before he was king, he was one of the most powerful nobles in England. Before Harold Godwinson ever wore a crown, he already ruled more than most kings in Europe. He was born into the Godwin family, one of the strongest dynasties in England. His father, Godwin of Wessex, was so influential that even kings feared to oppose him. But Harold did not simply inherit power, he learned how to use it. From a young age, he was not raised for comfort. He was raised for responsibility. As Earl of Wessex, Harold controlled one of the richest and most strategic regions of England. Wessex was not just land, it was the political heart of the kingdom. Its ports looked toward Normandy, its roads reached London, and its warriors formed the backbone of the English army. Harold became something more than a nobleman. He was the kingmaker. He led armies against invaders. He negotiated with Viking warlords. He judged disputes, collected taxes, and advised the king directly. In many ways, Harold was already ruling England long before he was crowned. The people knew his name, the soldiers trusted his leadership, the nobles feared his influence. He mastered 3 kinds of power: military power, leading men in battle, political power, guiding the royal council, moral power, winning loyalty through charisma and generosity. He traveled across the kingdom constantly, riding through villages, inspecting defenses, strengthening alliances. He understood England not from behind palace walls, but from the saddle of his horse on muddy roads and windswept coasts. Even his enemies respected him. Norman chroniclers, who hated him, still admitted one thing: Harold was brave, capable, and dangerously popular. That popularity made him a threat, not just to rival nobles inside England, but to ambitious rulers across the sea. So when King Edward the Confessor died without an heir, the question was simple: who could hold the kingdom together? Not just anyone with royal blood, not just someone with a claim. England needed a man the army would follow and the people would trust. That man was Harold. The nobles elected him because they already knew he could rule. The church anointed him because they believed the realm would collapse without him. He was not only the strongest noble in England, he was the only one capable of stopping invasion and civil war. And yet the very power that raised him up also painted a target on his back. Across the sea, William of Normandy watched him. In the north, Harold Hardrada watched him. They did not see a mere noble. They saw a rival king, and they prepared to destroy him. Fact 3, his crown was disputed. The bells of Westminster were still echoing when the whispers began. Is he truly the king? Harold Godwinson sat on the English throne, but the throne did not sit safely beneath him. Edward the Confessor was dead. No sons, no clear heir. Just a kingdom full of fear and men full of ambition. The English nobles raised Harold on the shield and declared, "England needs a defender. Harold will be king." Crowds cheered. Trumpets sounded. The crown touched his head. But far across the sea, another voice spoke. "No, that crown is mine." It was William of Normandy. He remembered a promise, real or imagined. He remembered Harold swearing an oath on holy relics. He remembered Edward's words, whether spoken or claimed. To William, Harold was not a king. He was a thief wearing a golden circle. William rode into churches and castles declaring, "He swore to me." Before God, he broke his oath. The Pope blessed William's banner. War became holy, and in the frozen north, another storm rose. Harold Hardrada of Norway listened to news from England and smiled like a man hearing destiny knock. An old treaty, an old promise between kings. To him, it meant only one thing. England belongs to me. He sharpened his sword. He called his warriors. Dragons were carved on ships again, and in the middle sat Harold, a king with a crown on his head and enemies closing in from both horizons. He walked through his hall at night, hearing the wind tear at the roof, knowing the truth. He was king, but his right to rule was written not in ink, only in blood yet to fall on battlefields. Every banner raised against him carried the same accusation. You should not be king. Was he the rightful ruler chosen by his people, or a man who broke oaths and angered fate? History still argues, but Harold did not have time to argue. He only had time to fight, and the sea was already turning black with the sails of men coming to take his crown. Fact 4, his reign was very short. The crown touched Harold's head, and time immediately began to run out. No feasts, no long celebrations, no years of peace, just a countdown. Harold Godwinson ruled England for only 9 months. Less than a single year, less than a full turn of the seasons. From the day he became king, he did not sit on a throne. He sat on a battlefield waiting to happen. He signed few laws, built no palaces, raised no monuments. Instead, he marched. North, then south, from storm to storm. Every sunrise brought a messenger. Another army is coming. He defeated one enemy at Stamford Bridge, and before the blood on the grass was dry, another enemy landed at Hastings. His reign was not a story of ruling. It was a story of running toward danger again and again, because there was no one else to do it. Then, on an October evening in 1066, the short reign ended where it had truly begun, on the battlefield. Harold's time as king was brief, but in those few months he faced more than many kings do in a lifetime. A short reign, a heavy crown, and a name that history would never forget. Fact 5. He fought two great battles in the same year in 1 year. Harold Godwinson faced what most kings would fear in a lifetime. Two invasions, two legendary commanders, two battles that would decide the fate of England. First came the north, the sky filled with Viking sails as Harold Hardrada arrived, a warrior king who had never lost his taste for conquest. Harold marched his army across the whole country in days, through rain, mud, and exhaustion. At Stamford Bridge, the clash was brutal. Steel against shield, arrow against flesh. By sunset, the Vikings were broken, and Hardrada lay dead. England was saved for a moment. Then the message arrived. The Normans have landed. No time to rest, no time to heal wounds or bury the dead. Harold turned south again. The same men, the same tired feet, the same bleeding hands, to face William of Normandy. On the hills near Hastings, the armies met. Shields locked, horses charged. The earth shook with history's weight. Two giants in 1 year, two storms back to back. Harold was not just fighting enemies. He was fighting exhaustion, fate, and the limits of the human body. One victory, one final, fatal battle, and the destiny of a nation balanced on the edge of a sword. Fact 6. He won the Battle of Stamford Bridge. The Vikings thought England was weak. They were wrong. In September 1066, the great warrior king Harold Hardrada landed in the north with a massive army. His banners filled the horizon, his reputation alone enough to terrify kingdoms. Harold Godwinson did not hesitate. He marched his army hundreds of kilometers in just a few days, through rain, mud, and sleepless nights. No rest, no pause, only purpose. At Stamford Bridge, the two worlds collided. The fighting was brutal and close. Shields splintered, axes shattered helmets. A single Viking held the bridge for hours, buying time with his life. By sunset, the Vikings were broken. Hardrada was dead. The invaders were crushed. England had survived, but Harold paid a price for victory. His army was exhausted, wounded, and far from ready for what was coming next. Fact 7. He lost the famous Battle of Hastings. Only days after victory in the north, new danger rose from the south. William of Normandy had landed. Harold turned his tired army around and marched again. No sleep, no time to heal. On 14 October 1066, they faced each other on the hills near Hastings. The English shield wall stood like a living fortress. Norman cavalry charged again and again, breaking like waves on rock. Then the battle changed. A rumor spread that William was dead. His army wavered, until William ripped off his helmet and shouted he was alive. The Normans feigned retreat, the English pursued, and the wall broke. When the sun set, the field was silent. Hastings was not just a defeat, it was a turning point in English history. Harold fell, and with him, Anglo-Saxon England. Fact 8. Legends surround his death. How did Harold die? History does not answer clearly. It whispers. One story says an arrow struck his eye. He grasped the shaft, blood pouring, the sky spinning as he fell to his knees. Another says he fought until the very end, surrounded by Norman knights, swords flashing, shields cracking, until he was cut down in a storm of steel. Some chroniclers claimed his body was so mutilated that only his wife could recognize him, by marks known only to her. Which story is true? No one can say with certainty, but everyone agrees on one thing. Harold died as he lived, in the heart of the battle, facing his enemies, refusing to run. Fact 9. His death ended an entire era. When Harold fell, it was not only a king who died, a civilization ended. For centuries, England had been ruled by Anglo-Saxon kings, their language, their laws, their customs shaping the land. With Harold's death at Hastings, that world shattered. The Normans took control. Stone castles rose where wooden halls once stood. French became the language of power. Old nobles lost their lands and their names. Everything changed. Law, architecture, even what people ate and how they spoke. Harold's last breath closed the book of Anglo-Saxon England and opened a new one written by Norman hands. His fall was not just a personal tragedy, it was the end of Old England. Fact 10. He is remembered as the King of Fate. History does not always remember the longest ruling kings. Sometimes it remembers the ones who stood face to face with fate and didn't step back. Harold Godwinson is one of those men. He did not grow up expecting a crown. He was not the son of a king, nor the heir in a golden cradle. He was a soldier, a statesman, a leader made by experience rather than blood. Yet fate kept pushing him forward. Forward into power, forward into danger, forward into the moment where a single decision could break a kingdom. When he finally became king, the sky was already darkening. Armies were already gathering beyond the sea. Oaths, sworn or imagined, were already tightening around his neck. And still he accepted the crown. Why? Maybe ambition, maybe duty, maybe because he understood a hard truth. Someone had to stand between England and its enemies. He could have fled. He could have surrendered the throne to William or bowed to Hardrada. He could have chosen life over legend. He did not. Fate called his name, and he answered. He marched north and fought the Vikings. He marched south and faced the Normans. He watched friends die, watched his army thin, watched the odds turn against him, and kept walking forward. Even at Hastings, when the hill was slick with blood, when arrows fell like rain and the shield wall trembled, Harold did not hide behind his men. He stood with them. He fought not like a distant king, but like a soldier who refused to leave his place in the line. And when he fell, however it happened, by arrow or by sword, fate took more than a life. It took an era. It took the last Anglo-Saxon king. It took the old England of wooden halls and warrior poets, of local lords and ancient customs. That is why people call him the King of Fate. Not because fate was kind to him. It wasn't. Not because he won. He didn't. But because he walked straight into the future he could not escape, with open eyes and a steady heart. He is the king who received everything at once. A crown, 2 invasions, victory, defeat, death, and immortality in memory. His reign was brief, his life was human, but his story is epic. And as long as England remembers the year 1066, it will remember the man who stood in the center of the storm, the last Anglo-Saxon king, the King of Fate. Harold Godwinson's story is not just about battles and crowns. It is about courage, responsibility, and the price of standing where history is heaviest. He was the last Anglo-Saxon king and the man who faced fate without stepping aside. If you enjoy stories like this, about forgotten kings, untold battles, and moments that change the world, then stay with us. There are many more secrets of history waiting to be uncovered. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, turn on the notifications so you don't miss the next story, and tell me in the comments, was Harold a hero of duty or a king destroyed by fate? Your opinion matters. History lives as long as we talk about it. See you in the next video.